Hello and welcome to the panel, where we take a look at graphic novels and talk about their story, art, and everything in between. On this episode, we're going to be talking about a comic written by one of America's favorite badasses and all-around nicest guy on the planet, Keanu Reeves, alongside Eisner and Harvey Award nominee Matt Kindt. Right? Can you guess it? That's John Wick has written a comic. So let's get into it and let's get set. Joining me today from Previews World, we have consumer marketing digital content editor Troy Jeffrey Allen.
I had a quote. I normally start with a quote, but I don't have a quote this time. So, what's up, everybody?
That's great. And from DST Unboxed and Previews World Toy Chest, host Natasha, aka Cannondale X.
Hey, everybody! Welcome to the show. I'm excited. This one is good.
I know, I'm so excited. It's so good to see y'all again.
I know.
What's
Hi,
up?
friends.
I feel like it's been
I'm
a
out
long
of
time, but I
practice,
guess it
though.
really hasn't
It
been.
has been. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You and me, Troy, not so long. But Mia, having Mia here. Great.
Right, exactly.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to talk about this comic with y'all because it was so good, and I know
So
Natasha is like really into it. So
So pumped.
let's go ahead and get started on this.
All right.
All right. So let's give you guys a quick look at the summary of the plot for BRZRKR. The man known only as B is half mortal and half god, cursed and compelled to violence, even at the sacrifice of his sanity. But after wandering the world for centuries, the BRZRKR may have finally found a refuge, working for the U.S. government to fight the battles too violent and too dangerous for anyone else. In exchange, B will be granted the one thing he desires, the truth about his endless blood-soaked existence and how to end it. Dun, dun, dun. All right. What was everyone's thought going into this? Like, Natasha.
So the cover alone is pretty intense and awesome. And let's be honest, it kind of looks like Keanu Reeves. So, like,
Yep.
you know, it's going to have some badassery happening. He's like one of the best of that. I love it. Love it. As soon as you get in, as soon as you open the book and you hit that first chapter, and then first off, I have to know, is that the bench from Forrest Gump? Because doesn't that look like the same scene? Doesn't that look like the same scene?
You know what?
Missing.
You know what's funny?
See?
So there is this meme. Here you go. Johnny just jumped in and said it. There's a
Yeah.
meme that's a sad Keanu meme, and
Yeah.
that is what that is. That is direct.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, they weren't
knew
shy
it- I
about that.
I knew it was familiar.
That's great.
But
I love
so
it.
I didn't know anything about this comic. I like to, whenever we do these panels, I don't want to research. I don't want to know. I want to just go in cold and read it. And this definitely was cold. It was bloody. It was messy, but also had like a cool story in it. And like, I mean, like I just told my pals here, the part that I didn't like about the book was when I got to this page where it said because I was 100% hooked on this story and this comic. So it's good. It's good. It's intense. It's got so many layers to it too. And I like the way the dialogue was, the art, all of it. I'm sorry. Somebody cut me off.
I know, it's like so
good.
there's so much
Yeah.
you want to talk about.
Yeah.
What about you, Troy? What did you think? Like, we're gonna read a Keanu Reeves comic book.
So this was a curiosity because grumpy old fanboy, right? Like I know I think this is normal with like celebrity focused comics for a lot of people. There's a need action to be like, okay, this again, But for some reason, I've gotten the impression that this has been the exception to that, and it really kind of endeared me to this subject was Keanu Reeves, like really seems to like comics, to the point that actually popped up on I think it was the Tonight Show, or I was one of the late night shows, and John Wick was about to come out. Want to just talk about BRZRKR, so I found that really fascinating. That kind of gave me a little bit more confidence in this project going in. It seemed he might have found the secret sauce. Him and Wesley Snipes, because Wesley Snipes also has something out right now that's in a similar vein.
So it's not that scariness of most celebrities getting into alcohol.
Right. Well, that too.
Yeah. Just had to throw that out there.
You want to throw some names out there? You want to out there again?
Nope. I'll say one that's amazing. The Michael Jordan tequila is amazing.
Right. True. Also true.
That
I heard the Rock one. I heard the Rock one was not so great. So.
All right. On that note, let's go ahead and start getting into this story.
Absolutely.
All right. I don't think anyone needs an introduction to who Keanu Reeves is, other than noting that this is his first comic writing debut. And he's writing alongside Matt Kindt, who has been nominated for a Harvey Award for his work on Pistol Whip, as well as an Eisner nomination for Two Sisters, Lost Girls, and Super Spies. So, collaborating with someone with a lot of experience, and we have Keanu Reeves, his first debut. Did anyone else read it in Keanu Reeves's voice?
Yes.
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 Yep. He was Keanu Reeves to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the whole book, it was him. Yeah.
It so was very cinematic.
It was.
Yeah.
I definitely had this moment initially where I was like, this guy's way too for Reeves. And I was like, Troy, what are you talking about? Like, literally, he's in John Wick. He's pissed off in Constantine. This is what he does. So, I once I kind of like recalibrated, I was like, no, I could totally see him doing this.
Yep, it was definitely a him character. Very much so. And like, yeah, the story kind of, and I think it lends to the fact that he is like an actor. It felt very like cinematic, very like a movie, and like storyboards, and I think a lot of that has to do with like his background. What did y'all think about like Keanu Reeves and like his story basically as his first time doing this?
I loved it. I loved the setup of it, because initially when you're first reading it, you don't know where it's going to go, and you're like, this guy is kind of, he just got shot with a bunch of bullets and he's still going in. He's still doing this. He's getting parts of his face blown off and he's still going. Like, so it gave that John Wick feel of no matter how much you're getting beat up, you're still going. But also a little, I thought, I was like, is this like a Deadpool thing? Like, is this like a Bloodshot thing? Is this like I didn't know, because I know, again, I went into this comic cold, so I had no origin of what it was really about, like how you described, him being half god or any of that kind of stuff. I knew none of it. So I was like, the curiosity of, okay, so how is he like this? Why is he like this? And then you get to the story more, and then, he's going through all these like gruesome, destroying people scenes, and it's got this voiceover of someone's having a conversation about what's going on and about his past and all this stuff, but like all this gruesome stuff is still going on. And so it just like, you have no idea. And the sheer curiosity of how is he like this? Why is he like this? And then you get more into the story and you're like, holy cuss words. That's a story. Like,
holy cuss words.
that's a heck of a beginning of how he's like this and why he's like this. And that's really cool.
It threw me for a loop, because
absolutely,
reading this, like it starts off like Jason, kind of what I read it as, and that's kind of been my assumption of this book up until I actually opened the book and read it, and then it kind of pivots into the barbarian type thing.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean. And I didn't really expect that, and once I settled into the sword and loincloth of it, I was intrigued by it, because it kind of presents this interesting like conundrum, I guess, for the main character, which is, he's kind of in this tug of war between like not just two people, but like three different personalities, and we can talk, I guess, a little bit more about that later. But it kind of that pivot into a sort of sword and loincloth aspect, like just kind of like oh, is that what we're doing? Okay, that's interesting.
It comes like I feel like it comes back to like the basic of human emotions and everything, because it's almost like this
Mm-hmm.
like Oedipus kind of thing where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, he like loves his mom so much, and then with like the dad, he's like, yeah, but who are you really?
Really,
You
right? Yeah,
know?
you're not my
So,
dad. You're not my real
so
Yeah.
dad.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this whole basic need to like find out where you come from and
Mm-hmm.
like who your parents are. And with him it's like I don't really know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got
Well,
like
I
bits
also,
and pieces and bits and memories and stuff. I will say in the
yeah,
story, I do appreciate that the dad kept telling him he loves him.
yeah.
I liked that a lot. Like I
Like
liked that
he didn't just outright
it
abuse
wasn't
him.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love you. I need you to kill these people for me, but no,
Right.
I love you. Like,
Right. And
but
that's what I
still
mean when
that
I say that.
sentiment. Yeah.
That's what I mean when I say the tug of war, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's like the dad's not a bad person. You know,
Mhm.
he's sort of like you can do these things, and we are getting our town is getting pillaged all the time, and like
Yeah.
help us, so let's use you to help us. And
Mhm.
meanwhile, his mom's like, well, he's just a kid. That's not okay. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, he's also like, well, why am I doing this anyway? Because you
Yeah.
know, like I didn't even get a choice in the matter. I thought it was really interesting. I feel
Mhm.
a lot of stories about and we talked the old guard, but I feel like a lot of before this, but like a lot of stories about immortals skip over the exact moment that it always happens, whether it's a vampire or whatever. They become
Mhm.
disappointed in humanity. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I thought that was the thing that really stuck with me towards the end of this book was just sort of like, oh, we get the exact moment that he was like, I'm sick of this crap.
Mhm.
And I just and that actually made me sympathize with basically this you said Deadpool, Wolverine, like
Yeah.
mayhem, monster killing, like madness that he is.
Mhm.
So I actually really appreciate that they gave you that.
I think it was almost like karma at the end, because it was
Hmm.
just like he kept pushing him. You know, he's like, "All
Yeah.
right,
Mhm.
we're just gonna keep going further out, and we're just gonna keep
Mhm.
going." And then he
Hmm.
turned him into like a monster, basically.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, like you get the monstrous aspect of it, and which was actually kind of also a shock. It was like, all right, well, we know he lives because this story takes place in the past. So how did he come back? And then you actually see that moment.
Mhm.
It's like, oh yeah, this is kind of yikes.
What I find kind of funny is that it's like Keanu Reeves writing this when he's like Mr. like nice guy, and then yet he's
Right.
like
Yeah.
writing this story.
Uh,
It's like, is this his inner
Yeah.
rage? Is
Darkness
this
inside.
mhm.
is he Batman?
Right. Right. I mean, you know what? Something can be said for these creators who, like, their outlet is the creative space they're in. We're all blessed that they just that route instead of go a different route. You know what I mean? I've heard that a lot about Garth Ennis. A lot of people are like, Garth Ennis is so nice, but he writes the weirdest stuff. Stephen King, you know what I mean? He's like, oh, he's
Mhm.
so nice, but he writes the craziest stuff. So there you go.
Very true. Very true. So, Natasha, did you have like, was there a certain aspect or point of the story that really got to you that like is your favorite part of the story thus far? Because this is like just the origin story,
I
Yeah.
really.
know.
Mhm.
I know. Gosh. Probably like I appreciate like the connection with his mother. I mean, as a mom, I will tell you, particular scene cut a little deep for me
Mm,
of him as a baby. Uh, not going to show it because it's graphic. Um,
mm,
but just his connection with his mom and just really trying to figure out who he is and how she has gentleness, and it did hit a little hard when yeah, that scene. Um,
mhm.
when he asks her, like, because she talks about how she prayed for him and stuff like that, and he goes, well, did you pray for me or did you pray
For
for
me,
him?
right? Hmm.
Yeah, and that was like, oh, like, how do you answer that? Like, how do
Hmm.
you want to be honest with your kids, but sometimes you shouldn't be.
Yeah, yeah,
No, just his need to, like, he just wants to take a nap, man.
yeah.
Like,
Right, 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 right,
after all of this,
right.
like,
Hmm.
he's been thousands and thousands of years and seen humanity evolve and even let humanity, experiment on him over the
Hmm.
centuries too, and like all the different grades of science, and he just wants a nap. He's done.
I
I
just
can totally
I
relate to that.
I didn't notice this before, but they're definitely getting a semen sample from him in the
Yeah.
shot. And you don't notice it until it's blown
Wow.
up on your screen. You're like, oh
Wow.
wait, interesting. But
Well,
actually,
I can't relate to that part, but the rest of the story is pretty awesome.
actually I thought that was speaking of that, because like the other part of this is like in the present day they are trying to reproduce him. That is a
Yes.
big aspect here. And by the end of the somewhere like towards the middle slash end of the book, the one of the sign or whatever, or whoever's in charge of the organization that is
Hmm.
trying to reproduce him is basically like, okay, so lightning struck twice and then he was created. He's like, they say something along the lines of like, well, if it struck once, that's a random occurrence. It struck twice, maybe we can recreate that.
Create it.
And I
Yeah.
and I was sort of like, huh, all right. So now I'm very about where that end game is going after we've seen,
Hmm.
his death and rebirth and rebirth and rebirth. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I'm very curious.
Yeah, that's actually what I was gonna go on. Is like,
Mhm.
so it kind of like ends with this big cliffhanger of like there are secrets and
Hmm.
like what is kind of like your idea of what might be going on? What do you think is like the big secret behind? We already know that they want to reproduce him, but it seems like there's more to it.
To it, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
It's weird. I don't know.
It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it's for good.
Right.
Maybe the
No,
second lightning bolt. Is that another one?
maybe something else. Well, I mean, I think also the connection to like his godhood is also kind of wild, right? Like,
Hmm.
and now they're trying to tap into genetics of it, but clearly they're going to have to confront something that is much bigger than just like DNA. It's gonna
Mm.
go. It must go somewhere else with this. Like, yeah, I don't. That was one thing. That was one thing I was kind of didn't like about the book, is that it ends this idea and it's like, okay, but where is that part going? And I understand that's the nature of comic, dangle the thread a little bit and get people to
Hmm.
keep going forward. But it was kind of, I really don't know what the purpose is outside of defeating foreign enemies for him being in this operation. Like, so curious about that,
Hmm.
which is the point.
Super soldiers. It's always super
It's
soldiers.
always super
Always,
soldiers.
yeah.
There's always super soldiers. I mean,
It's always-
I'm hoping if see fighting like 80 of them all at the same 80 versions of him.
All right. So we have talked a lot about the story, but we can't go through the story without talking about the art. So let's
Yes.
Yes.
start talking about the art so we can combine it all together. All right. Ron Garney has worked on a number of top ranking comics, including JLA, Wolverine, Captain America, and X-Men. And he's also worked as a costume illustrator on the 2007 film I Am Legend and The Sorcerer's Apprentice starring Nicolas Cage. So I found
Okay.
that as like an interesting tidbit there as a cosplayer. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's kind of
That's
neat.
cool.
All right.
Mhm.
All right. So how did you guys like the art in conjunction with the story? And we'll start with Troy this time. I'm gonna pick your brain.
I read the first issue when it first came out, and then reopening this and then starting it and actually diving full into it. I forgot how bloody this book was.
So bloody.
And yes, like Ron Garney is a veteran. Like he's a guy who's been around for a good minute. Like I probably one of the first Captain America I read like in earnest was by him. And so he's one of those guys who just says like, yeah, he's got stock. Like he definitely knows what he's doing. And he has this kinetic, like grisly way of doing action that is so perfect and is perfect for this. He did a book called Get Mystique, which was a Wolverine Mystique comic. And I love that book because it was just tons of, you got these two characters that can basically um are shapeshifters and can heal themselves, and then you just kind of put them through the ringer. Kind of what we're getting here is like you get the main character put through the ringer like consistently, and you get to see all these pulpy masses of bloody human vis like nonstop, and it's so wild, but he's so good at it. and not in a gross way either. It's always kind of like, oh, okay, yeah.
Natasha.
Or maybe, or your mileage may vary. I don't know.
There's a few scenes that are pretty gross. They're gross.
Okay.
What do you think,
Ironically, one of them,
Natasha?
honestly, one of them that's not too graphic, but I was still made me jump a little was this one where he got his nose blown
Oh,
off.
that's off,
I
right.
was like, because all the blood splatter. I was like, wait a minute, that was his nose. I was like, that's his nose being blown off. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah,
Mhm.
the art is awesome. Johnny already put up this scene, but the one where the mom is being infused with the god, essentially,
Yeah.
that whole scene is just really cool. Like I like how it morphs
Mhm.
together and the colors and
Mhm.
and then I was like, oh, that's what's that. Okay. And then
Shout out.
in the crease of the book shows a little more. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's
I was
it's
gonna
just
say shout out to the fallopian tubes coursing with magic.
yes, yes. And I just like the layout of it and like the colors, and again, how when you're in present time versus past time, like the colors are a
Mhm.
little different, the intensity, and I just like the overall just look of the book. I mean, like
Mhm.
I literally couldn't put this down. Like I was reading through it, and my kid wanted something, and I like was like this. I was like, hold on, I did whatever, and then I was like right back to it. I was super into it, and a lot of that, it's not just the story; it's the look of the book keeps you,
Mhm.
it's a comic book. It's supposed to have pictures.
Mhm.
So I loved it. The art is really cool. It just really grabbed the story and made it more intense.
Mhm. There's one part towards the end where
Yeah, see, that's gross.
I
How's
mean,
that
yes,
gross?
yes, it is gross. He did
Okay.
definitely rip a horse's head off. This
Like,
is also
Yeah.
true.
Multiple times, but
yeah.
Yeah. But no, there's like, after, so I love that there's also kind of like a rhythm and a pace to the action, because
Mm-hmm.
first time you see it, it's meant to be very impactful and very like,
Yes.
oh, whoa, right? And they find degrees of trying to of showing you this brawl that he
Yes.
constantly get into. And there's one really great bit where they don't even bother showing you the brawl. Like he's on the helicopter after everything's said and done, and one of the military guys is like, "Mission was a success, but we had 2 casualties." And like you see Berserker sitting there all like defeated, like they got in my way.
Yeah,
Like
they got too close.
they got
Yeah,
too close.
they
Like
got too close.
right. But then and so
Jeez.
that's a
Yeah.
variation of the art, right? And then you move
Yeah.
forward, and then like there's a later part where it's just sort of like you just see his eyes glow, and you
Mm-hmm.
just know, and you don't even see him touch anybody. All you see is limbs.
Mm-hmm.
So they find
Yeah.
ways to make it not boring after a while.
Yeah.
I feel like it lent to like that whole aspect of it being like a movie, because it's like John Wick, right? You get like some storytelling, and then you get a lot of like bloody fighting, and then you get like storytelling, and then like it's very much an action movie
Mm-hmm.
with like
Mhm.
these very epic cinematic choreographed fight scenes, and it's kind of just intense.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Now, what are your thoughts in general about like celebrity written like comics? Because there has been kind of like a recent push for them. I know, Troy, you were talking about it. I think there was one by who's the she played Daenerys.
Oh yeah. I know the book's called Mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. For
Amelia
Amelia
Clark.
Clark. Amelia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So there've been a couple of them. Like in general, Troy, since you brought it up, like what were your thoughts before, and then now having read this?
I mean, I shouldn't say this because I do work in marketing. But at the same time, sometimes these things come across your desk and it's sort of like you have to promote this, and it's just sort of like, I'll be honest with you, with some of these celebrity focused books where it's like headed by a celebrity in some way, shape, or form, it's just like audience is very savvy, right? Like our audience at Previews World has been reading comics for a long time. They've seen various waves of celebrity comic books, right? And I think that they all have the same reaction that I have. A lot of people have the same reaction I have, which is like, pass, but like this really is into the rule, and I think that maybe that has a lot to do with Reeves clear enthusiasm for the format, and I also think he's letting the people understand the format the best, like steer this ship a little bit. You know what I mean? At least that's what it feels like. And maybe he's discovering things about the format himself as they go along. As far as I know, Keanu's not a screenwriter. So this might be one of those things where it's a concept that he's talking out with Matt Kindt, and Matt Kindt is doing like the legwork to kind of make it like a fully fledged story. But beyond that, I think typically celebrity focused, celebrity fronted books, meh, meh. I'm not gonna say
like
they're all bad, but they're not.
Yeah, I feel like that's that same thing where it's like, oh, we'll just hire like a big name to be in this movie, but then the movie's kind of like, meh.
Yeah, right. And I mean, like, there's this infamous was it Cowboys versus Aliens? I don't know if you guys remember that movie. It came out a few years ago.
Yep.
And they had been saying for years, like, oh, it's based off of a comic book. But in reality, the comic book didn't actually come out until after the movie actually came out. And so it's just kind of stuff like that kind of makes I think your average comic book reader cynical about that particular process. Like, you know what I mean? It's just sort of like, is this really a story, really a pitch, basically?
That makes
But
sense.
this is a story. This is actually a story.
Yeah. Natasha, had you had any like, experience with kind of celebrity written stuff before?
I mean, some of the points that Troy hit are totally valid. A lot of times they're gonna have somebody, maybe an actor who wants to branch out and like this is a new media that they're not familiar with and they want to get involved with because it's clearly awesome. It's comic books. And then you have people who genuinely want to write the comic because they really love comics. Like I have a book from John Leguizamo that is awesome, and like when you're reading it and stuff, like he wrote that because he wants to put it out there into the comic book community because he wants that seen and read, not just, hey, look what I can do over here. I could do this too, that kind of thing. Like sometimes when you have actors that become singers or singers, all the cross-platform stuff, or, hey, look, I have this alcohol, things like that. But this book definitely felt like there was a love and a passion, and it was not just, hey, I'm, I mean, I can't ever say this because it's Keanu Reeves. You can't ever put this attached to him. But like, hey, I'm Keanu Reeves. Look how awesome I am because I can write a book. Because he is awesome. So like, do whatever. But just as an example, but this particular story and book, it just felt like it was a comic book written by comic writers. It didn't feel like all the bells and whistles of celebrity and then a book. So that's my take.
Okay, now bouncing off of that, this is gonna be a very random question. If you could pick any celebrity to like write a comic book, who would you choose? And like, so that way you guys have time to like think of something. I'll go with mine. Like, I think Samuel L. Jackson would write a really like kick-ass comic book if he had the opportunity. It'd be
to be fair,
crazy.
He wrote a great kids book.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
that you can't say out loud.
Go the F to sleep.
I remember that, yeah.
I have it.
See, I feel like that could go really well as a comic as well.
So I'm gonna go to
pipe in on that one. Sorry.
I'm gonna go ye old previews world because I definitely remember Samuel Jackson wrote a comic book. And he did. And it's actually from Boom Studios called Space. It came out in 2010.
What's it called again?
Cold Space.
Cold Space.
Yeah,
okay.
Cold Space. It came out in 2010.
All right, I'm learning something. Studios. I'm going to write that down.
And
I don't know if it's good or not.
Yourself the kids book because it's amazing. Even if you don't have kids, you're going to want the book because it's amazing.
I'd heard he read it, like he was the narrator for it, but I didn't know he wrote it. That is
there's an audio version too. It's great because it has like the super inflections on it too. You want a glass of water? Go the F to sleep.
Oh, that looks really cool. Cold Space. Dun dun dun. Kind of even looks like him. I love how it's like, yeah, I get to be like in a comic book movie. All right. Do either of y'all have one? I know this. I just threw this out.
I'm also gonna be. I'm gonna say one that actually already exists. I was very happy to find out that Quentin Tarantino wrote a Django Zorro comic several years ago.
Really?
Crossover book, right? He wrote it with Matt Wagner, who's also a veteran of comics, and it is so great. And the thing that really sucks is that so was going to greenlight a movie to get it made into a movie, and then they backed out of it right before the pandemic.
I
So I
hate
don't
when
think it's
that-
ever going to see the light
Aw.
of day. But
No.
Jane met Zorro, and
That's
it was
awesome.
phenomenal. And yeah, I think a Quentin Tarantino comic book in general, and it feels like a Quentin Tarantino story. You know,
Is it a really long one?
It's I mean it's like about 7 or 8 issues,
Is
but
it
it's a hefty
Is it going
it's
to
a
be
hefty
like
read.
10 pages of just them walking through a field?
I was gonna say, is there like at least one like panel of just feet?
No. You know what? He didn't draw it, so I don't think
I don't know. He could have written that in there though. An
He could have.
unnecessary foot picture.
he could have. But maybe Matt Wagner is like, I don't like to draw feet or something. I got to go back and look now. I'm not sure. Maybe there is a comic book in there. That's hilarious.
If you find a foot picture in there, you have to show
I'm gonna
me.
find
That's
it. I'm gonna look.
hilarious.
I'm about to look this up right now.
Oh my god.
What about you, Natasha?
Oh my god. I don't know. Like a celebrity to, I mean, I can't say Kevin Smith, obviously.
Right, he did that.
Yeah, he's done that a lot. And they're all awesome. Gosh, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe
What about
Liam
your
Neeson.
Vin Diesel.
Well,
No more Vin Diesel.
Mm.
No more Vin Diesel.
No more Vin Diesel. I'm sick of him.
Tell us how you really feel there.
I'm done with Vin
ouch,
Diesel.
Troy. Ouch. No, I'm gonna say Liam Neeson. Liam
Okay.
All
Neeson.
right.
Any particular reason, or just because you like Liam Neeson?
I don't know. I want him to write like a Celtic period piece or something.
Hmm.
I think that would be cool.
Okay. All right.
It would also have
Putting
to be
that out
very
there. Actually, you know
bloody.
It would be what?
Actually, you know
It
what?
would also have to be very bloody.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It totally would. It totally would. Be like
know what,
a
actually,
combination of all of this, like gore, but then like a little bit of history in there. I think would be cool. And yeah.
I was in the same camp. I would love to see James Gunn write some maybe even Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever. I think he's got a nice comic book. That would be my other choice.
Yeah.
I like how Johnny said Fast and Furious comic about family, and now I just want him to write a Fast and the Furious children's book about family.
Yes. Yes.
Just
There
to
you
mess
go.
with Troy.
Vin Diesel
Just to make me-
family for kids.
You know, there was already like a kids Fast and Furious cartoon on Netflix. It's already
Yes.
gone too far.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. Okay, what if there was a Berserker movie? Ooh.
Yes, please.
Mm.
Can
Yeah,
we have
that
that
would
as a
be-
movie? That'd be
That
awesome.
would be really cool.
Mhm.
All right.
Totally, you can totally
Um,
make it like multiples too.
Oh yeah, definitely,
Like a series?
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I
Oh my
do
god, if it was a
appreciate-
Netflix series, that would be awesome.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Keanu would pay for that. I feel like he would like go ahead and just like pay for the funding
Green light
for
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Please give us a Netflix series of this. That would be awesome.
I do appreciate that they're letting the book develop. Like
Yes.
the initial series is still coming out in some way, shape, or form before there is a movie. Like, I appreciate that. So
Ooh, Johnny
is
says
good
it's
to
already
know,
being
'cause I need
optioned
more.
by someone.
Johnny said, "Well,
It's already being optioned by someone.
I mean, I'm not surprised."
Okay,
So now,
I need-
before we get into like suggested reading and stuff, what are some other like celebrity or director written stuff that we could recommend to people? Like I would, like for me, Buffy is something that I know like is written by Nicholas Brendan, which is pretty cool because it's like you actually have someone who was on the show continuing on the story, and kind of seeing what he would see, where he would see the story going. What else do y'all have?
Oh,
I don't have anything. I was not prepared for that question.
you,
I know I'm throwing a bunch of random questions at you. I'm sorry.
it's all good.
I
I
do want
look
to know
for
if
this.
they make it a movie or a show. They should hire my husband to make this because he could make
Ooh,
it.
yeah,
yes.
that's nice.
Make that really easy. Just saying. Throwing that out
He
there.
should make one and then gift it to Keanu Reeves.
Babe, if you're watching, for those who don't know, my husband's a blacksmith and he can make stuff like this.
Yes, you should make it and then gift it to
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves. He would
That
probably
would be
love
amazing.
that.
And then he could take a picture just like this.
Yes.
Sorry.
It's all good.
So Troy, do you know of any real fast that you can think of?
That I like. I mean, you said Buffy.
Or just
and,
in general, like
I mean, I definitely
I
I
didn't
mentioned
know.
Django, but
was
you
it
know what?
Wesley
Actually,
Snipes?
yeah, Wesley Snipes has The Exiled right now, which is coming out from Matt Whatnot Publishing. That also seems to be getting the same level of enthusiasm that Keanu Reeves' Berserker has been getting. So, maybe we're Renaissance. Maybe this is something where the celebrities coming on are actually invested in the format, and they want to kind of see it succeed on its own before they get it out quickly for a movie. Um, you mentioned Buffy actually, and you actually just reminded me of Frey, which was a Dark Horse comic. Was actually a part of the Buffy universe, but it took place in the future with a Slayer from like I don't know, I think it was like 300 years from now. And the cool thing was that they introduced an axe in that comic that Buffy actually ended up finding in like the final season of Buffy. So that was cool. And like, that sort of like interplay between the two formats is always nice.
Yeah, there we
So
go.
yeah, there you go.
Nice.
And that was a fun one. It's very, very Buffy like.
Very cool. All right, well, let's go ahead and start getting into our final thoughts then. And all right, final thoughts overall. What did you think after reading this, Natasha? We're just gonna go because I already know.
Read it. Go get this book. Read it. And then be like me and have to wait for the next volume because it says to be continued at the end.
Right.
No, I super love the story. I like the way it's laid out. I like, it is an origin story, and you get to learn a lot about him and where he came from, but also not a lot because that's what he knows, and that's kind of cool to find out. And you also, he's working with the government, and you find out little bits and pieces about that. But again, not all of the story, so you're really, reined in, and you just kind of want to see where this goes and see if he finds relief, see what's going on with that artifact that got thrown in the well. Nobody's talking about that piece, huh?
That's a good point.
All of these things, like what's going to happen next? Are they going to find where he came from? Are they going to find all this? Because that was like, what, 79,000 years ago? Like, that's a lot of digging. That's a lot of stuff. But it's a really great story. I really enjoyed it. It's very graphic in their imagery, but like it fits and it goes with the story, and it's not too much, as Troy would say. It's not too much gore, just enough. But it's really good, and it's like, I mean, I 100% sat in one place and read this all the way through. And normally with these kind of books, I have to take a break or this or whatever. Like I was sucked in through the whole thing, so it's good stuff.
What about you, Troy? What do you think?
Yeah, to Cannon Doll's point, it's a breezy read. Like it's not a heavy lift, which makes it fun to read as well. A lot of widescreen shots of just people getting their faces punched in. So that's also fun. This is proof, I kind of feel, that Boom is a pretty well-rounded publisher. I think that maybe we don't talk about that enough, is that it has a lot of content that has been curated very well, and it crosses a lot of different genres. And I'd imagine that a lot of what they experience is that they have pockets of fandoms, right? So you do have actually the Buffy fandom. Boom does Buffy as well, right? But then you also have the Power Ranger stuff, right? But then you have this Keanu Reeves thing in the middle. You've got Irredeemable, you've got the one and done, like independent comics types vibe that they do. So they have a wealth of material, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's something that isn't talked enough. I will say this: if I had to be critical about one thing, and this is just the nature of comics in general now, I am kind of over the staggered approach to story. Like you get to issue 8, you got to get to issue 8 for the thing that makes you really want to lock to happen. Like it kind of used to be that each issue was its own little story, and I kind of missed that. And so when I got to the last page of this book, I was a little frustrated. It was just like, and I understand that's the point, but it was more like, oh, come on. Like you could have gave me a little more, like, and I think it's because it is a breezy read in a lot of ways. I kind of tore through it pretty fast, and it intrigued me, but it was just sort of like 4 issues in one trade, and I'm just sort of like, I want to know where this is going, and I still don't have a sense of that yet. But beyond that, it is a fun book, and maybe the trick worked because now I want to read volume 2. So there you go.
See, it's not just me.
All right, now what does everyone have as like a suggested comic? I'll go ahead and go with mine. Would be Old Guard. Very much that idea of like immortals that are fighting with the government. There's also, is it Netflix? Netflix did a movie,
Netflix.
Right? With Charlize Theron. So yeah, and she's kicking butt, which is amazing. Yeah, so that would be mine. Anyone else have like a suggested reading?
Mine is Bloodshot, because you've got like a similar, initially when I started reading it, felt very similar in that, I mean, when he's getting shot and all this stuff is happening, I was waiting for like nanites or something to like form him back together, or some kind of healing process to happen, which did not happen. But Bloodshot has that super soldier kind of feel of him, he's working with the government, he's doing all this stuff. At the same time, he's trying to deal with his own turmoil and, heartfelt backstory and stuff like that. So I think that's a good suggestion for people.
It's a nice cover too.
Valiant Comics.
Oh, muscles.
So that's my suggestion.
Me sold.
What about you, Troy? I know.
For the record, by the way, I'm on issue 7 through issue 7 of Django Zorro, and there's no feet yet. I just want to point that out. Anyway, or at least no foot fetishing. Yeah. You know what? Actually, Johnny pointed this out, so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to remind people about previous catalog, right? Boom just in like the May catalog that they're doing a Berserker Poetry of Madness comic. And the cool thing about this is that it is written with Reeves, but also with Steve Skroce and drawn by Steve Skroce. And the cool thing about that is Steve Skroce was the storyboard artist on The Matrix. So this is kind of like a homecoming of them. And I'm very curious to see what that entails, especially since I'm only in the 4th issue of this book. So I'm like, well, what's beyond this book now? You know what I mean? Because I haven't read volume 2 yet. So now I'm sort of like, now they're dangling the carrot in front of me even more. And now I'm like, well, now I need to get to Poetry of Madness to actually read this book. So I'm a fan of that. I'm way into that. So I would say give that a shot if you're into this.
There we go. And also because I cheated and I just wanted to like look up a couple of different like celebrities that had written books, and some of them are kind of crazy. So I'm just gonna run through these really fast.
Let's hear it.
Are closing the show. CM Punk has
Yep.
written them. Rosario Dawson.
Oh.
Yes, that's
Bill
right,
Hader and Seth Meyers.
What did they
Gerard
write?
Way, yes, did Umbrella Academy.
Oh, yeah.
Ultimate Warrior. So we got another wrestler. John
Cool.
Cleese.
Okay. Interesting.
Let's see. Rashida Jones.
Oh,
Mark Hamill. Patton Oswalt. And then, of course, Kevin Smith. So I just thought some of those were kind of interesting. I was like, oh, I'll have to look those up. So
interesting.
In case anyone was wondering on some of those other
check
ones.
out the Rosario Dawson one.
Some of those are not surprising, and some of those are really random.
I kind of want to pick up the random ones just because I want to see.
Just to see.
Yeah.
All right, so we are closing out the show. This is your reminder to everyone to pick up Berserker at your friendly local comic shop. And to find a local comic shop near you, head on over to comicshoplocator.com and you can find one near you. And so for our guests here, do any of you guys have anything that you'd like to plug, or where can people follow you online? Let's start with you, Natasha.
So you can find me super easy at canondollx.com. And CanonDollX, you just Google it and it's all me anyway. So any social media platform, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, all the places, I am there. I am plugging my events this weekend, actually tomorrow, because tomorrow is Saturday. I am hosting 2 events at the Nerdpocalypse. It's in Baltimore, Maryland, and put on by Transcendent Events. And they do all these epic nerd events. They do StellarCon in the fall, and it's going to be super fun. I'm hosting the cosplay contest and the beer Olympics. And then in May, I am the announcer for Patuxent Roller Derby in Columbia, and that's May 13th. So, but you can find, I'll link all that information on CanonDollX.com, so you can find it. And me.
All I can think of is Beer Fest now.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, and then
I really hope it's like that.
I host a little show called DST Unboxed. There's that too.
There we go.
Right. I unbox toys and stuff, and it's pretty cool.
All right. Thank you both for joining me. It was so good seeing y'all.
Yeah, you too. I love your hair.
Thank you. I'm still getting used to it. I have so many burns. We won't talk about that. Oh, yes. And Previews World. Make sure you go to Previews
that
World.
Guy.
They've seen my face plenty. They don't need me.
Oh, Troy, I didn't get you to plug things.
It's okay.
Doing? Oh my gosh, no. No, I'm out of practice. Troy, go.
It was only a month, Mia.
It's 2 months. 2 months.
Has it been? Oh, it has been 2 months. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah,
see, I'm really out of practice.
Okay. Yeah, I take it back. No, yeah. You can hang out with me at Previews World for sure. We have our weekly show, and of course, we're doing other cool content. We got a Frank Miller interview that we've been teasing for months now.
Yes.
It's definitely going to happen. It's Frank Miller and Dan Didio. I got to sit down with them and talk with them. I'm thinking it's probably going to drop in May, and then we have 2 more interviews. Some industry favorites that will also be following during the summer months. Also, I just want to point out, hey, follow me at TJA Comics. I'm pretty much TJ everywhere, and I'm getting into the comic game, or kind of reestablishing my dominance in the comic book game with some new material, cool stuff. So definitely follow me if you are into just discovering more comic book stuff in general.
Like Fight of the Century.
Like Fight of the Century.
And now I can say thank you. And for Comic Book Day saying hi, friends.
What's up, Ashton?
Hey, we missed you. All right. So now thank you guys for joining me. It has been really fun talking about this comic book with you, and we will have to do this again soon. Mm-hmm. And for everyone joining us, if you have a graphic novel that you'd like us to talk about, leave a comment below, and your choice could be picked for a future episode. And remember to follow us at Previews World and Free Comic Book Day on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And just wanted to leave here by saying heroes are a dime a dozen, but comic fans are priceless. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time. Do you have a suggestion for a graphic novel that you'd like to see discussed on the panel? Leave us a comment and your choice could be picked for a future episode.